Coming to you live from Cultura Media House. Presented to you by 786 Sports. It's El Big League Show with Adrian Lorenzo. And now batting, here's Danny Enriquez.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to El Big League Show. My name is Danny Enriquez. As we record this September 29th, which means we are about to get to the best time of the year. It is, I won't say October Eve, but it is playoff Eve. Tomorrow, we got some of the best action that we're going to see all year. Incredible matchups, rivalries, teams that are very excited about getting in, teams that are heartbroken watching from home. We'll get into all of that with your guy, two-time World Series champion, former MLB exec, Adrian Lorenzo. Adrian, how we doing?
Doing awesome, man. Favorite part of the year. So this is the episode I got most excited about in terms of what we were going to talk about, because it's a time to reflect in both directions, right? Like there's a lot of teams that are really excited, but now have immediately you cut celebration mode and you go into preparation mode for this next most important part of the season. But then there's a lot of other teams that had to that are doing a lot of reflection, it's a lot of time for reassessment. The weeks leading up to this have also involved some of this. We've seen some new hires for the general manager positions, things like that. But the 2025 season is over. And now from a front office standpoint, you're already looking at free agency classes. You're already looking at exploring trades. You're already looking at things for the following year. So you're really preparing for the GM meetings and the winter meetings almost immediately. Maybe you get a day, maybe you get a blow for a day, 2 days max, if at all. But there are a lot of teams turning the page for next year, but also really closely watching the playoffs now, because I think if you're any kind of capable front office, you're plugged into what's happening at the tip of the spear. And right now, watching playoff baseball, you have to take a look at them and realize that one way or another, you have to emulate whatever these teams just did and how they got in. And there's the range of stories of how teams got in, which we'll get into, like the offensive gap between the Yankees and the Reds, for example. Both teams in the playoff in wild card positions, right? But the way they got there is completely different. One leaned on pitching the whole way through, didn't have a guy over 25 homers. There's some stat there. Meanwhile, you look at the Yankees on the offensive end, and they juggernauted their way through to their path. And they almost won the division, came close. So my point is, you as a team that's not in it right now should be really locked in on playoff baseball. I know it can be easy to look at your own team, but look at what the teams that got there and are going to ultimately win just did, or their style of play, their roster composition. Maybe their management of the things they did in the lead up, right? There was a while here where we were talking about the Dodgers kind of being are they stumbling? No, it was just the wobble before the momentum push toward the end. And it's hard to say that that's not most important, effective. You've seen Roki Sasaki come in relief. And anyway, there's a lot of things that intrigue me about this time of the year, but the playoffs really shows you where the apex of professional baseball is, and that's why I like it so much.
Yeah, and I want to ask you a few things on that, because you've worn the uniform, not as a player, but you've worn the uniform as part of the on-field baseball.
Major League staff assistant.
Of course, you've been at the exec level on teams that have made the playoffs.
I was a low man on the totem pole role, just for what it's worth.
Hey, but you're on that side of it, and you were also 2020. You're on the executive side of it, front office, and making the playoffs there.
In 2023.
And 2023. So, I want to get into both sides and how I'll say prepare, just transition to this playoff mode. You started with front office. So let me go there. Talked about getting ready for winter meetings and stuff like that. Are you watching, and you mentioned also watching the paths of the teams that got in?
For sure. I did that the most. I tried to reverse engineer good outcomes almost always, even scouting. Real scouting is just reverse engineering big league players. Therefore, my logic was real evaluation of a front office or the job they're doing is reverse engineering the best ones. And they're not all going to look the same, but that's the way I view it.
And you're doing it right now? If you're put yourself in that seat, and it is September 29th, playoffs start tomorrow. Is that, I know you're obviously doing a lot of things at once, but is that something that you're doing right now? Hey, these are the teams that made it. What are the moves they made maybe at the deadline or on the fringes? And then, of course, just from a bit like fundamental roster construction standpoint, are you doing that analysis now?
I think it depends. Are you in it or not?
You're not in it.
If you're not in it, then I think the best ones are, right? I think the best ones are watching like, okay, what just beat me over the course of 162, process-wise, on-field results-wise. Some teams really show like how important it is to just win baseball games. Like you can get caught up in building your system and farm system and this and that. You can have the best in all these directions, but if you don't know how to win Major League Baseball games, or if you don't consistently win Major League Baseball games, then it's all for naught, And so they're like, depends on where you are. I think the best ones are looking like, what are these guys doing right? Because this is where I want to be. It's so hard to get there. That's why, like, I think sometimes people watch baseball celebrations of like getting into the playoffs and these guys are celebrating like it's Game 7 of the World Series. That's real. That's a genuine, it's this long 162 game sprint that requires such holistic and complex processes and things coming together, timing. You can have a $342 million roster and miss the wild card of the playoffs, right? So like so many things have to come together and align and stay. I don't think people realize how long 162 is, how long the Major League Baseball season is, how much to keep a blistering pace is impossible throughout. So how do you manage the peaks and the valleys, get hot at the right time? So I would be looking at the teams that are doing things really well, especially the ones that made big jumps from last year to this year. Like what did they do to get themselves into this? Those stood out because I would always put in the Marlins, put myself in the Marlins position. And it's really like, okay, we're on certain years on the outside looking in or this far away. How can we be, maybe I'm not going to be the 1 or 2 seed overnight, but can you sneak into that 6 seed? That 6 team in, and if you sneak in there, can you have the pitching matchup to make it a tough series? Like the Mets, for example, walked into what was like leverage wise, like walking into a postseason matchup, and they had to face Sandy, Eddie Cabrera.
Yep.
And so like, it didn't matter how good you were going, you can face the wrong buzzsaw matchup and you can get screwed up no matter how good you were going into the postseason. It happened in 2020 with the Cubs. Cubs had a really good run going. We were not supposed to be in the playoffs, but all of a sudden you match up against Pablo Lopez, Sandy Alcantara, and an elite Sixto Sanchez, and that series becomes a problem. Even if you have Darvish and Kyle Hendricks, it's really interesting, the teams that make the biggest jumps. And to me, those teams, Seattle?
Yep.
Milwaukee makes the biggest jump. They've been a contending team for a bit, but now they solidified themselves as what did they do to all of a sudden net out the best win total in all of baseball? And comfortably in control of their division, kind of cruised into, like the Cubs had a really good year too.
Yeah.
But they just kind of cruised into an NL Central title in spite of that. So I think there's someone to observe. Without Yelich was a former superstar, is playing at a really high level. I think to them, he's their superstar for sure. But he's not like, there's nobody in the top 10 in this, nobody in the top 10 in the WAR leaderboards, with a Brewers jersey on, but still they net out best team in baseball. How are they doing that? That's fascinating to me. And it's, when you look at it, as we have on previous episodes, it's all over the place. It's all over. It's a holistic roster build. So they're one model. What Philadelphia did is nice too. Like let's not just reward the teams that scrapped it together, did something on the margins. How about the team that just like went out there and was just elite all the way through?
And I want to get into some of these teams, but before I do that, because you made a distinction, which I wasn't ready for, which you said, did you make it or not, as far as what is the front office doing? So if your team did make it, which you've been in that seat before, you're not going to make a trade, right? At that point, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing as C-suite executive or someone in the front office on a team that is in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Aside from just watching the games, like like your own games, like what are you doing in that situation is different?
How do I win 2 out of 3 games? I think everybody in the organization all of a sudden gets mobilized to, like, anybody who's adjacent to the major league preparation or anything that can affect the major league operation. How do I win playoff games right now? And that looks different ways. I think the best teams have been out ahead of this for weeks now, maybe even months. So if you feel like you're a playoff team, you start sending your scouts out to see the teams you're probably going to play. So you probably have pretty good coverage of all the teams that are about to make the playoffs. And some, you cover them and they don't make the playoffs, but you're over covering to see, because you don't know who you're going to match up with or in what setting you're going to match up with them in. So it's the good teams have had teams on the Dodgers, on the Padres, on the Brewers, on the Mariners, on the Astros, even that didn't make it, on the Mets. The teams that had a chance to make it have been their advanced scouting against them. And what's advanced scouting, right? We talk about all sorts of different buckets. Advanced is preparation scouting and game planning to beat your major league opponent. That's like a huge other layer of scouting that we often don't talk about.
Yeah.
And it gets automated a lot too. Some teams believe in a more data-driven model as it pertains to game preparation. Other teams still heavily believe in like the eyes on the field, watching a team for 3 weeks, giving you an update and tendencies and things that might happen, who they might use in this situation, who they might use in that. But
before you move on, does your entire the personnel department become advanced scouts at that point? Like when you shit to the playoffs, like, hey, we're kind of mobilizing everybody. This is what you're doing now. Is that kind of the shift that happens?
Yeah, I would say it's not the same across 30 organizations. I think they all treat it differently depending on the size of your staff. But if you have a big staff and all of a sudden you're in it, you're going to press every leverage. You're going to press every button that you can in terms of available resources. And a lot of teams have very talented scouts that know what they're looking at, that cover these teams as their expertise base. If you're a org scout, for example, they divvy up. You get 3 organizations, the other scout gets 3 organizations, and you're one of those experts. Chances are you get called to comment on what you've seen, and they're putting you on their major league club right now.
Yeah.
Or you're monitoring the playoff rosters, like who's the fringe decisions on the roster in the playoffs get really interesting. I think Clayton Kershaw didn't make.
Bring it up. You took the
Clayton
words out of my
Kershaw
mouth.
didn't make the wild card roster, and you look at it and you're like, yeah, but you only have 13 and 13. So
Shit,
like
but he's pitching well. That one
he's
was a head
pitching
scratcher
well,
to me.
but it depends on how you view winning in the postseason.
Yeah.
Right. It's like it is a little head scratcher-ish to me, but like I know they're the Dodgers, so I know they put a good process behind whatever they do, and their process led them to like, okay, maybe that the logic isn't the same for the next series or for the next kind of round of this.
Right.
But for this one, this is our win formula.
Yeah.
And they're bullpen heavy in the playoffs. They're not, let's let our starter go 9 innings or 7 innings. They're going to go to that pen. And in order for you to do that, you need to have a depth of a bullpen in order to do that. So they're prioritizing depth than their 5th starter, which is not, that makes sense. That tracks. It's unfortunate that it's Kershaw in his last year and it just works this way. But the back end of your roster, who you decide for positions 11, 12, and 13 on your position player side is just, I remember remember a guy named Terrence Gore?
Yes.
With the Royals?
Yes.
Terrence Gore would not play most of the year. All of a sudden in the playoffs, he became like an asset. Monte Harrison served a little bit of this role in 2020 where all of a sudden that base in the game becomes more important. That like, who do you put as a runner on first base in the 9th inning with 1 out that can score from first base on a double in the gap? Those things get factored in much more. The defense, who's going to close out the game defensively, especially at positions where over the course of 162, you're stuffing a bat over there. So you compromise defense, but then the playoffs come, you need to convert. Every out becomes just a premium. If you could put a dollar amount on what an out is worth in postseason baseball, I'd really want to know that answer. Cause that's like, it's a lot of money.
Which is why, I mean, again, help a fan like myself understand this decision for a Kershaw.
Yeah.
Cause I understand comparing him to like a Yamamoto or whatever, but when you measure him against somebody who's in your pen, I mean, his arm's not going to be used after this year. I mean, it's not like this is someone you're trying to preserve anything. This is a straight, what can we get out of him now? And then he's done forever. You wouldn't prefer a guy with his experience and handedness and everything he brings to the table over just someone in your pen that has been on your bullpen all year?
All things being equal, yes, but all things are not equal. So like the way a reliever prepares to come into a game and the way a starter prepares over 5 days to get into a game are 2 completely different things, right? I learned this from Nick Martinez. I watch him try to navigate that, doing both. That's why I have such a premium on guys that can do that. That guy becomes really valuable in the postseason too. And I'll get to that when we talk about the Reds. But you start to go through it with the Dodgers and like you just run out of numbers, right? Like but let me put a pin in that, or let me finish that preparation thought, because a reliever is in a rhythm of coming into a game whenever he needs to, getting hot in a quick amount of time, He's in a rhythm right now. Now you're asking a starter to enter a bullpen mentality rhythm when you don't know when he's going to come into a game. And maybe what he provides, which is some length, some starting pitching length, that works across 4 or 5 innings. But if you need a guy to come in for an inning or two and miss bats, I don't know that Kershaw's in that category of pitcher anymore. He's going to get you through a game, and he's going to be a crafty starter through a game.
Right.
And in a 7-game series, maybe you need that.
And lefty.
So there's a lefty matchup component too. But you look at their bullpen and like they're covered, man.
Mm-hmm.
They got good lefty. Like, is he in above Tanner Scott? Is he in above Vesia? Is he in above Trinan? Like, and then you see, it matters what Roki Sasaki is, because Roki Sasaki, while he is a starter, he is that 99 to 100 with like bat missing capability, and he can throw 2-3 innings. That's a different animal right now, ironically, because he had a bad start to his major league career.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a more valuable playoff asset in this moment for the role that he's going to be asked to do. And odds are that they've been preparing him to ramp back up as a reliever, not as a starter. So like, whereas Kershaw's been in a starter routine for a little while now, and I just want to spotlight that. It's not that easy to just go be a reliever. When you don't know when you're going to come into the game, you don't know when you have to get hot. You need to know what you're doing. And that's why I don't think too many guys bounce back and forth through the course of the year. Very small select few. So I think the emotional fan, that makes sense, especially because in this power rank, he's been the 38th best pitcher in all of baseball in the last 14 days. So he had an argument to be on there. And I think if you had one more spot, you would be. But you only have 13. I got to emphasize that. You go with your 3-4 starters. Okay, that's 4. Scott, Vesia, Trinan, Banda, Edgardo Enriquez, Sasaki. There you get to 11 real fast. And then now you start making your matchup related decisions. And to me, it's just a numbers game where he's on the outside looking in. But I think as you get into a NLCS, maybe that shifts. He's going to stay pitching, I think. He's not going to just stop. So I think they're going to keep him hot. And you don't know if Clayton's okay with this. I'm sure the competitor's not thrilled about it, but like, dude, he's a member of that team, no matter like where this goes, right? But that one happens to be a tough one because there's emotional tie to it. And he's a Hall of Famer. Yeah, no, I mean, look, I grew up when our 2 best relievers for the Marlins on our World Series run are 2 of our best relievers. I guess Oogie got it together at the postseason, but I mean, think of how big Pavano was, right? And Dontrell Willis, who was basically your best pitcher for a big portion of the regular season, becomes what Kershaw would be in this scenario, right? That left-hander out of the pen. So maybe I'm just used to that, but it's like, man, a guy like that with that kind of experience, when outs are so valuable, who can go against lefties, that's must be nice to be the Dodgers. I think that's a moral of the story, that you can have a guy pitching that well and not have to worry about it. Yeah. And I think Kershaw's there. He could give you the last of what he's got. Exactly. You know, it could be, but maybe he gets a chance to do so in the later half of the playoffs, and I'll hold out hope for that, because I like baseball with Clayton Kershaw in it. So no doubt. So before I keep saying we're getting into the specifics, but I'm just so fascinated by this process. So this is my favorite part, so we can stay here. One thing that jumps to mind, you talked about how did guys get here in terms of calibrating your mind, like, hey, what did these teams do to get in this position? What part, like, again, putting yourself in, let's say your team's not in it, right? But your team, let's say you're the Mets or someone that you anticipate being in the postseason in the future. I guess every team does, but you want to know not just how to get to the postseason, but you want to know how to win a World Series, right? How much of it is watching what's playing in the playoffs, maybe differently than what played in the 162 games before that, to say, these are the things that might be different in a 2025 postseason, and therefore we need to have this in mind when we're making moves and we're trying to win a championship. Oh, I see. You've talked about it before, as far as like teams that might be built to make the playoffs and teams that are built to win a championship. Yeah. Is there a process to calibrate, or thought process to say, okay, I see this working. This guy might have been, up and down over the course of the 162. But man, he was instrumental in this series because of what he brought from a arsenal standpoint, from a talent standpoint, mentality, experience, whatever it was. This was different than the last 162, and this plays. Is there a process to that when you're watching the playoffs as an executive trying to learn? I think it's 2 different things, right? How we got here today before we start the playoffs, you get to evaluate like how we got here. So you get to take things from the teams and how they got to this point, but it's a different beast from here on out. So it's a yes and. Okay, it's okay. You did this, you got this far, but now are you built for 20 whatever, however many games more to win a World Series? And now, so I'll wait to make that judgment because now we're seeing who got here.
Yeah.
But now who's built to be here now that they've gotten here? And they can be two different discussions, right? So I would reserve that to see the wild card round. And really even like the DS round, because, you're not going to see the Phillies yet. You're not going to see you're not going to see some of the better teams yet. So wait to see how they're built, because those teams had their eye on the playoffs. The Phillies built their team with the World Series in mind, not sneaking into the playoffs in mind. So we'll see how that style of roster plays in this playoff run. But today you're able to assess okay, who got here and how did they get here? And if I'm on the outside looking in, like the Mets, for example, the Mets who had the fourth best, let's see, it's second best offense in baseball to the Yankees. We got to talk about the Yankees. That's offensive juggernaut related things. Shout out James Rawson. But okay, the Mets, you proved you can be the second best offensive team in baseball.
Best team in baseball for a period.
Right. But you put the defensive metrics in reverse order, and all of a sudden you're a bottom third defensive team. And I think if you watch the Mets over the course of the last however long, their defense unraveled on them in several situations. And so you can be an offensive juggernaut, but you got to also play good defense. I think it's something the Yankees learned this offseason or this past offseason. Okay, we got to the World Series, but our defensive and base running capabilities weren't good enough to play good enough postseason baseball to then win and make it happen. And they're one defensive play away.
Who they acquire at the deadline at third base.
Right. Ryan McMahon, who's gone on to have a good offensive year too, but they prioritize that. Right. Jazz Chisholm playing a natural position at second base is better positioned. They're Caballero, for example, on the bases, right? They did think Trent Grisham as a defensive player. Cody, they're adjusting from last year. And so I think that they made necessary adjustments, not only in the offseason, but to your point with Ryan McMahon at the deadline. They targeted these moves, Caballero, they targeted moves that would make them better in the postseason, not just moves to get them to the postseason. And so now we'll see, with the Mets, you're going to look at these defensive deficiencies and be like, okay, we could score this many runs, but if we play defense at this level in September, we're going to be on the outside looking in.
And I got to give you a follow-up on the Mets and that what you just said, because you talk about front office decisions, and they're in the situation where their offseason's already begun.
Yep.
We all know what the big elephant in the room is when it comes to their offseason. It's at first base. And I saw an interview with him yesterday, Pete Alonso. He didn't sound like somebody who thought he was coming back, or at least knew he was coming back, right? He's definitely up in the air at best. Offensive profile. Defense, I don't know how he graded on defense. I mean, he's a first baseman. Nothing.
It's not good, but
it's not a defensive profile. Right. It is you getting him to mash. Do you maybe say, hey, we love you, but the money we pay you here to be a power hitting first baseman, we could spread around and improve our defense? How does that factor into that negotiation? Because that to me is the story of their offseason, at least in the beginning, is going to be what happens with Alonso.
Yeah. And I think it's not on Alonso's side, or it's not in his favor to chase another high dollar free agent on the verge of being on the outside looking in. That said, they were in the mix.
Yeah.
A ball falls this way, a homer falls that way. It goes sneaking in with a good team all of a sudden to being on the, so it could, I wouldn't just wash the Mets season as a disaster. Hey, we need to rebuild completely, but they are spending a lot of money to not be in the postseason. So that's just after having just signed Juan Soto and Lindor shortly before that, Edwin Diaz shortly before that. And
you lost the playoff series. I mean, that was the playoffs. That was the playoff series, and they lost it. And
the Marlins, the Marlins played a really good series of baseball, and they threw three really good arms at you that made your life difficult. So, they're interesting. We should talk about them toward the end, but you have to address some of these base defensive and base running deficiencies in order to finish down the stretch strong, even with guys like Soto, Lindor, star players. So I don't know. My style of roster building wouldn't have me jump out and pay $250 million or whatever it's going to be to a first baseman that was just on your team. So that team that you had, didn't do it.
And he played great. He played the whole
Right.
season.
It's not on him.
Durable.
It's not on him.
Yeah.
So it's seemingly unfair to Pete Alonso in this dynamic, but if it's my style, my appetite of roster building, not only would I spread it around, but I'd aggressively attack making yourself a multi-dimensional team. Like, you have too much money to not have threats everywhere. So it's really just a matter of having more impactful diversity of impact players, not stacking it toward like 3 guys can get you all the way there. But they can lead you to a second best leading offense in baseball, and you need that. A lot of teams, if they had their offense, would be very, very good contenders in baseball right now. So they have some deficiencies, and they just carried that momentum downward, unfortunately. There's a lot of good people and processes in place there. So to me, the Mets are here to stay for a while in terms of this year. They're outside looking in, but they're going to be in this mix. They were the best team in the league for a stretch there. But the shit's hard, man.
And some young, talented, cheap arms on the way. We did a whole segment on some of the young talent they got on the way up. So that's going to make things easier if those guys you can count on them. You don't have to pay them maybe to fix some of these other issues. But fascinating team. Obviously, money does not guarantee success, as we saw with the Mets. But me being a cynical Marlins fan, I look at this list of teams here that made the postseason. I see the Phillies. I see the Dodgers. I see the Padres. I see the Cubs. I see the Red Sox. I see the Yankees. The Blue Jays, I don't think, are cheapskates either. They have some money to spend. You do have the Brewers, who you mentioned, right? Guardians, what they did to get in there. So there are, the Reds. So there's teams that were able to overperform based on their payroll, but you got 6 of the top 10 payrolls in the game here. So is that something you look at too when you're talking about the assessment from a front office? Like, hey, these are the financial realities of the various teams that made it into the playoffs.
I think that doesn't give enough credit to those teams and the guys who run those teams. I think it connects like, oh, you have a lot of money, therefore you're going to be good. No, you can have a lot of money and it can be dispersed in ways that don't come together. Like chances are, if you're spending a lot of money on major league payroll, you're also have the wherewithal to spend at a high rate on people, processes, staff members, things like that. So like a lot of the teams that you mentioned also have high-level, borderline elite processes across their scouting departments, across their medical departments. Like, and those things to me matter comparably to payroll. And
just to play devil's advocate, the Phillies acquired a lot of guys through trade where they developed prospects and then made the trades. Padres, definitely the same thing there. Made some big trades that they developed the guys to make the trades. The Cubs, a lot of homegrown draft picks, particularly with top position players that they drafted and are playing
different style of composition.
Yeah, so I guess you can't penalize Red Sox. Same thing. If your payroll is paying your own guys that you either develop from the beginning or you develop prospects that you traded for them and fair value it for the other team, that you're getting your success just results in you having a bigger bill at that point, as opposed to just signing the best available free agent.
And you can target your free agent dollars toward things that will move the needle the most. Not just let me get the best players I can with my free agent dollars, because 6 of my 9 guys are homegrown guys that I have good contracts and good deals on. Okay, let me target my free agency spending to like who's going to make the most impact. I think, the Phillies signing a Kyle Schwarber, for example, like that's really targeted at what you think you need and what you want, or going out and getting Johan Duran with prospect capital.
Yeah.
Like going out and making that deal because your scouting department scouted McAble, and that's a carrying piece, and there are other players involved.
Starlin Caba for Luzardo.
Right. Like, but that's more of a wheel and deal model. That's more of a, I'm willing. I like Dave Dombrowski and hit the style of general managing, because it's all emphasis is placed on winning at the major league level. That's not to say that the processes don't get focused on, but like, hey, let's not forget we're here to win World Series championships.
Yeah.
And so like being the team to make the aggressive move that might hurt you on the other end one day. Leo DeVries, like that might hurt San Diego one day, but you needed to do this now.
Yeah. And
shout out to the teams who do that. And there's some who like, I've seen the other side of prospect hoarding.
Yeah.
Or like, just like, no, I don't want to get beat on a trade. And sometimes that's the right move. I remember Ben Cherington holding on to a stable of guys of Mookie Betts, Jackie Bradley, guys that had real trade value that would end up getting everybody in the league is coming after them when you're not good and when
Yeah.
they're in the lower levels. So it takes a certain level of discipline not to trade away those guys. But when you're in your window and you have an ownership you're accountable to, a fan base you're accountable to, like, I think you need to like take the risk on that prospect and like get your big league team as ready for it as ready for this winning thing right now as you can. And I find myself more on the style of or more in the bucket of make your trades, let them burn you, let them go be good somewhere else, but make every effort you can for your fan base and for your ownership group that you're going to like close in on a World Series title, because that one World Series title changes the trajectory of look at the Marlins, man. The Marlins were still talking about stuff from 03 and 97.
Adrian Gonzalez for Ugi Urbina.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like it's easy to like, oh, World Series champion. No, World Series anything or world champion and anything, it's so elusive. It's like, it's so slippery. It's so seemingly unattainable at times and it makes people's careers. So you all of a sudden are a general manager that wins a World Series. You have a job for a good chunk of time after that, because that's the process. That's what everybody wants. Same thing if you're the scouting director on a World Series team, a pro scouting director. This is good for everybody involved. You know, you make that intro of two-time World Series champion. Yeah. Like I've told you before, I was an intern, you know, so like the Red Sox are just a good organization that take care of all their people. But it's, to me, that changed my life. It changed the trajectory of my baseball career in terms of like what I was a part of, what I was forward facing to, that I learned from. So it has so many ramifications down the chain of people who work for these places that you have to chase them at all costs, I think. And there is an argument to be made that long-term viability should always be prioritized. But there's something romantic about, hey, when you're in it, you got to fucking go for it.
Well, here I got a series that just as you're talking, I'm staring at the bracket right now. The square I'm staring at here as you're saying this is you got the San Diego Padres going against the Chicago Cubs. I'm staring at the Chicago Cubs. I think of Gleyber Torres, Aroldis Chapman.
Yep.
Right. So you gave away a lot.
Yep.
For a play. Ultimately went back to the team you traded.
Yep.
With. But you're talking about the whole city transformed. I mean, you can't put any kind of, it's impossible to value his contribution to that.
Yep.
The Padres, who have not been there or not gone over the hump, I'm looking at them. I'm like, man, how many trades did these guys lose? We talked about them. I say lose with quotes, but
yeah,
they really, I mean, in a vacuum, they lost all
they've been in the
trades.
postseason every year for how long?
And if it would have gone right, they could have a different way.
An out away, a base away.
But I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, you traded Mackenzie Gore,
yep,
James Wood, you know, everything.
CJ Abrams,
Robert
Hassel.
Right. You didn't win that trade in a vacuum, sure, because you didn't win a championship and the player's not with you anymore.
Arlen Susana.
The Tanner Scott trade with the Marlins. As a Marlins fan, I love it. I mean, that was a loss for them.
Snelling deal, right?
They lost Scott. He's not on their team right now. He's on their rival team.
Yeah.
So that didn't work. Rental. That part of it. Yeah. Snelling is one of the best pitchers in the minor leagues. I mean, he's going to be on the Marlins next year. So you look at the Arias, I guess, wait and see on that one, because who knows how this thing's going to play out. But Jacob Marcy is doing pretty good for the Marlins right now. I think he's in terms of value, he certainly has a lot more present value right now than Arias. Even a trade like a Ryan Weathers trade for Garrett Cooper. And Ryan Weathers looks like he could be a mid-rotation starter if he stays healthy. Certainly has the stuff for it. And you didn't get anything out of Cooper. You're hoping he gives you a little bump in their playoff run. So these are all trades that objectively they lost. But I don't see the Marlins on this bracket here. I don't see the Nationals anywhere near this conversation. And they're right there with a chance to win the whole thing. And they had chances before that they tried to capitalize on, just didn't go their way.
Yep.
So who are we to sit here and say, hey, you guys lost all these trades. You guys are so short-sighted, when we're staring at the bracket after they lost these trades without these players that they traded for, and boom, they're right there in the mix. And they took their shot and still had another shot.
Yeah. What stands out to me is, okay, they know how to scout and identify and sign and develop good players, because that's just a ton of good players that were original Padres going out being good elsewhere too. Right. But at the time they had other needs that were pressing in order to stay relevant. And if you've been to San Diego during postseason time, like it's San Diego's only professional sport right now. Like they don't have the Chargers anymore. It's like, so they need to push And you as a general manager, you need to push that pace too, I think. And I think AJ Preller is more of a wheeler and dealer type in the fashion of, I think, Dave Dombrowski, where they just believe in high volume of trades. And like, we have good scouting departments that scout good players that other teams want. And what I think they do well is they stack players together. So even if one player doesn't equal value 1-for-1, they put packages together that make it like, it's almost like, okay, what's it going to take? Okay, 2 players, 3 players? Is this enough? We'll add this one. How do we make this work? That's like the Soto deal. It's like stacking things on top of each other to net out Juan Soto at that trade deadline. Like, I don't know. I'm partial to a more aggressive style of trades because I think you got to be okay with guys getting opportunities elsewhere too. Like, what are we going to block this guy in our system for multiple years just to like make sure that we're the ones who get his value? Sometimes it's just like player movement is sometimes good. It creates opportunities for those other guys to be who they're going to be. If you have to win at the big league level, that's hard for a rookie player to develop on a good big league team. They usually need to get their time on like middling teams to get their 400, 500 plate appearances.
Yeah.
It's hard to get that when you're in it every night chasing a division.
We saw with Lawler and the Diamondbacks. It was tough.
You got to be like Roman Anthony and to do things like that. It's not an easy place to develop at the big league level when you're good.
Yeah.
So if those guys don't project them being impactful big leaguers in your 13 and 13 26-man roster, like you have to do things to acquire players that will be. And sometimes that involves trading away good players.
And you mentioned, obviously, their latest trade with San Diego. If Mason Miller's hugging the catcher, at the end of the season, how can you lose that trade?
Scott.
Yeah.
Tanner Scott in that postseason run for them. Like, that doesn't look great right now, but like he was dominant for them when they needed him, and they were a play away, an out away, a base away. So you're right. If they're hugging the catcher at the end of a game, because they won a CS or a World Series, then it's the Ugar Turbina thing. Was it a bad trade?
And he's got years of control, Miller, too. So if you're saying this is our window, we're going to be in the playoffs X amount of years, that's a major difference-making player for what you're trying to do in that short period. Obviously, you're not going to say, I'm sure if this guy ends up being a great shortstop, like he looks to be every bit of what he's projected to just from watching him in the minors, the WAR is not going to it's not going to look great. It's not going to look great. But if you have, how long is Miller under control? 3 years, 4 years?
3 years.
Yeah. So
he's he's pre-arb still.
So if you're in the playoff all those years, how many crucial moments is he going to have in that short window? So maybe it's not going to be the same over the course of 10 years, but in that short window, these are like timeless moments for your fans, for everybody. So it's just a different way of looking at it. But that's what you were saying, that I was just literally staring at these Padres and Cubs, because the Cubs lived it. They would make that trade of Aroldis Chapman 1 million out of 1 million times. And
I'll say this, right? Like, because it's one example that's especially relevant to me, and it's Chris Sale, 2018 or the 2018 offseason, 2017-18 offseason. The Red Sox trade for Chris Sale, but to trade them, like Yoan Moncada was the main piece.
Your guy.
I was working in the Red Sox international department. I was like, Yoan Moncada,
Were you his translator? Like as your
not Moncadas. I was Rusney Castillo and Yoenis Cespedes.
That was like a Cuban spending spree era. I feel like all those Cubans were making a lot of money.
It was. Shout out to those guys. But so Yoan Moncada was our baby. That was like the Red Sox scouting and player development baby. So to have that be one of the pieces going out the door, and Michael Kopech as well. I was in that draft room, like observed the process for him to get selected. So at the time, you're like, it's a gut punch. Yeah. Yoan Moncada was the best prospect in the game at that point.
Yeah, you're visualizing him in the uniform.
He just
doing
looked
all
right.
These things.
It was just he was something else. I think he is something else. But like I think the Stars all the time that they traded for Chris Sale that year. He'd go on to win the Cy Young and be the driver to that World Series run. But like that's one of those deals that's like, everybody's questioning you in the short term. You just traded away the team's best two prospect, best pitching prospect, and best position player prospect. But if you don't make that move, are you that team? And now, You know, again, people have World Series rings and careers as a result of things like that coming together. So I think it's for those reasons that I'm partial to the ones who go for it.
Yeah.
Because you got to go for it at a certain point.
And you see it all over here. I mean, talk about Crochet with the Red Sox, you know, Jazz Chisholm, Augustine Ramirez ended up just had 1 year, but 20 home runs. He looks, we'll figure out his position, but he certainly looks like everything you projected him to be.
Yeah.
But Jazz is going to be making those plays that kids impersonate potentially here in this run. So you just see it all the way up and down when you look at some of these teams.
And the trades that you make early too. So like revisiting the Rafi Devers trade.
Yeah. I don't see the Giants on this list. And in fact, they are looking for a new leader in their front office.
Well, I think,
or sorry, in their not the front office, in their clubhouse.
Yeah. So I was like, I might have missed something there. But no, like, and Rafi Devers had a really good year, and he's going to be very good for San Francisco as well. But like, if we rewind and capture the time capsule of like what was being said at that time, they were getting crushed.
Yeah.
For that deal, crushed.
Yeah.
But what people didn't see outside of that is they were watching Roman Anthony come up. They were watching things happen. They're like, okay, we think we're better in the long term. That's not a going for it move necessarily at the time, unless you're inside of, you know, those offices and those processes. So, you know, but shout out to the Red Sox for signing and developing a Devers that can net you out. Like really, like Kyle Harrison shows up at the end of the year and you're like, whoa, yeah, okay. That wasn't nothing coming back either.
Yeah.
Right. Like they got a really good arm coming back. So it's the things you do throughout the course of the year, not just at the deadline, but that can really impact you. And Chris Sale was an off-season trade, so that's a different type. But that one really sticks with me in terms of how these big moves that involve you going for it can move the needle.
So let's get into some of thwe won't do a full playoff prognostication here, but just some teams that jump out to you. You know, I think for me, when I look at team, and maybe this is my heart because I want to see these guys do well because it's been so long. But man, when I look at the Mariners and the arms that they're going to be trotting out that are healthy, that are ready to rock and roll, right, in the postseason, they've added a lot as far as position players. Have been very aggressive. Their homegrown talent, some of the best in the world, certainly up the middle. So the Mariners, do you see them as a team that could potentially just find that stride here in the postseason? They've had the stride. I mean, they've been a great team all year, but just with the arms they have, could they be one of those teams that's like, man, they are tough to beat at this kind of setting?
Yes, but a lot of this would ride on young pitching who's never pitched in the postseason before, right? So like, yes, that pitching, that's a bad matchup. You face in Seattle in a 3-game set or a 5-game series, like you're not looking at those pitching matchups and being like, okay, today's good hitting today.
Yeah.
But you're also like, okay, there's some young guys in there and a lot of guys in this group that have never been in the postseason before, talented as they may be. I wish they were a little better defensively in order to, like, that plays in the postseason as well. Yeah. Like are you a clean, efficient defensive ball club in the postseason? Because that's going to come up.
Yeah. And
so we'll see. They got a lot of bat missers, which is good, right? If you don't, what's a good outcome to not get your defense involved? Just strike everybody out if you can.
Right.
So that's, I'm not ruling them out, but I'm also the defensive stuff tempers me a little bit. And also like there's playoff inexperience there for the most part. There's some guys in there who have it. Randy Arozarena, like there's some guys there who have it. And some guys that have been really good in clutch situations too. Like JP Crawford is a sneaky good player that we don't talk about enough. And I saw him on some list the other day, and like high leverage positions, he's a top 5 hitter in baseball. So like they're a sneaky team for sure, with a guy in the middle of the lineup who just hit 60 homers, you know, and is there's no good split for him. You can't throw a good lefty against him. You can't throw, like, he's pick your poison, you know, with how you're going to match up against Cal Raleigh. We'll see how he does as a postseason performer now. Because, like, what stands out to me is teams like the Yankees too, right? Like, sometimes having that lineup, that deep of a lineup with that many threats, and you've made some improvements defensively, like they still pitch it pretty good.
Yeah.
But like, and postseason Stanton is a different player too. There's a different energy. There's a different aura to postseason Giancarlo Stanton that I like them in this series. And that's as somebody who's partial to Boston, who I also like. You don't want to see Crochet right now. You don't want to see like that lineup's been playing good baseball, play good defense. They're playing good defense lately. Trevor Story's playing really well. He's one of the better second half performers. But the Yankees really stand out in how good they are offensively. But then you look at a team like, let's see, who's leading defensive? Toronto. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Toronto and the Cubs and Cleveland are three of the best defensive teams in all of baseball. So it's clear that defense, like I mentioned, also plays at this level. So, but Toronto's going to the postseason for the first time in a while. You don't have a whole lot of postseason experience on that roster. That I put some weight on that. It's subjective to put weight in that category, but you can get the deer in the headlights stuff to happen in postseason baseball. It's just a different breed. You go into San Diego, for example. I've been to postseason games there. You go to Philly for a postseason series, like that's not like playing any other game. I don't care what. You've probably played in big games, but I'll never forget that 2023 crowd in Philly. Luzardo's pitching, so you feel pretty good because he had been going good. He's top 5 pitcher in baseball right now. But Bryson Stott hits a homer off, I think, Andrew Nardi. And he had that walk-up song that the whole stadium sings along. I'm not going to sing it now, but the whole stadium was still singing, and he hit a grand slam on the first pitch of everybody still singing the song.
Yep.
I get goosebumps thinking about it, and I was crushed by it because it basically won the series there. But my point is, playing in those environments is a different beast. So when they got guys that have been there before, Philly really stands out too. I really like Philly. I went on Un Podcast de las Mayores, which is our Spanish language podcast on 786 Sports. And we all picked like favorites for the postseason. And Philly was my favorite on the National League side. That was about a month ago. I'd stay the same again right now, especially with the run that Schwarber's been on. And it's a tough place to go in and play. So especially for rookies, I've seen rookies go into postseason baseball, and it's just a lot.
Yeah.
It's not easy to just go out, be good as a rookie in the playoffs. It's asking a lot of a player.
You see a Pena, you see a Cabrera. I mean, we've seen it happen before too.
For sure.
It's look, we'll see how this all plays out, because I also like the Phillies, but it's hard for me to look at the Dodgers with the way they're pitching lately, just kind of their run of pitching, the ceiling that those pitchers have, and then everything else that we know about them. But man, I know we're Nick Martinez, friends of the show.
Friend of the pod.
We're very interested in the Reds having some success. Okay. But if the Dodgers were to win that series, and you're looking at Dodgers Phillies next round, that is, I honestly, you can give me all the teams on the board. To me, I cannot find a more compelling matchup than that matchup right there for me.
Interesting.
I don't know what you think about how that, we don't count the Reds. That's why they play the games. The Reds could pull the upset of the century here and beat the team that everybody thought was unfair to baseball. That's why it's fun to watch. Yeah. But man, it is hard for me not to see those names on the bracket and not visualize that one right there.
Yeah, like wanting that matchup.
Oh, can you imagine?
Yeah, it's possible. It's definitely, I don't know if it's probable, feels probable, but it's hard to get past Red Sox Yankees to open. Red Sox Yankees wild card series right out the chute. That's pretty good to me. I'm partial and biased, but like baseball, that's good for baseball, I think. But yeah, that's one that you have circled. Just like if it's Padres Dodgers, that's also one.
Oh yeah,
just given everything going on in that, in that history, that's also like a really.
And that'd be for the pennant the way this whole thing shapes out
again. So there's a few interesting matchups, but I got my eye on Boston Yankees in this first series.
Looking at the odds here, so you got Detroit minus 165 in the Guardian series. You got New York minus 135, Cubs minus 115. That is the tightest spread as of now. And then the Dodgers, the biggest favorite, minus 200. But I want to go to that this because this pairing is very interesting with the Tigers and the Guardians, given what we've seen the last month or so. So we've talked about the Tigers on this show I'm sure they're relieved, not happy to be where they're at,
Sure.
but relieved. The Guardians, the way they've done it, what makes their approach so unique, and how are they able to be in this position besides having, one of the best players of his era in Ramirez?
I think by having one of the best players
That helps.
of his era in Ramirez is definitely squarely in the middle of their model, but they've been a consistently steady organization that's it's found a way to remain relevant with good processes and low payroll, and not, break the bank. And there's the Cleveland way, the Cleveland model has been its own little silo that has operated effectively for quite a long time. So I can't sit here and say I'm surprised that they're in that discussion. I think Stephen Vogt feels to me like he's clearly an impact manager. I think he's that I believe in. We could talk about that with the Reds and Terry Francona. I think, I think their influence can be had from that seat. So I think I'd place some value in that. They play good defensive baseball, so they play a good, clean game. They got a lot of athletic players across the field. But it's interesting, even teams that made trades to, you're selling basically to end up in a position of like this. But I think the Tigers had a blistering pace at the beginning. When we talked about them last, or in the regular season recap of them, or we were talking about them because they were the best team in baseball in that pocket of time.
Javi Baez
exactly
was like on top of the world, which I know that changed a little bit.
Right. That neutralized or stabilized a little bit. But Detroit kind of let that slip away at the very end here. Like, we could have been talking about Detroit the way we talked about the Mets, where it just kind of like, it slipped a little bit. But kudos to them doesn't matter how you get in. Now, how are you positioned to get in? You'd love to have momentum going in, but it's not completely necessary either.
Is that a real thing? Is the momentum?
I think you'd always rather be playing well than not.
Yeah.
I don't believe that, like, the teams that it's not going well for, you have good expectations that it's going to go well just because it didn't go well right before it.
Right.
So I'd rather be on the momentum side than not. But I do think there's stoppers, right? The term stopper, or like a starter can kill anybody's winning
starting
streak.
Pitcher,
like Skubal.
Exactly.
He's a stopper. He could stop whatever momentum, and all of a sudden, Skubal throws a shutout in game one, and you're up 1-0, and you're like, damn, and this guy gets to throw twice in a 7-game series. You start to get a little more wind in your sails. So, starting pitching helps you get out of that. Like, if you've been sputtering in, but you have a couple horses, then I think you could feel good about that. So I could easily see the Tigers winning that series as well, despite the momentum that Cleveland had propelling them to go in. But the other side of that is that momentum makes you confident. And confidence, what we're about to do is a bunch of one-on-one, basically grown man versus grown man entering one-on-one competition. And who's going to win that moment, that pitch, that strike, that out?
Highly mental.
And if you have a little bit of confidence, you have a good athletic team that plays good defense, and you have confidence you can pitch it good, you're in every game. Now, to me, it's do you have Giancarlo Stanton to hit a 3-run bomb, to like make that, to nullify those things? That's why I like teams like the Yankees in this series. And this postseason.
With the Guardians, I mean, this thing with the scandal they had to deal with, that to me is incredible that they weathered that without really,
sure.
I don't know their split since it happened, but I think they've been probably playing pretty good. Certainly this run's been on the other side of it. I got like I look at it from UM perspective, obviously, because I'm a UM guy. They got a few Canes here on the roster with the Guardians. But, Slade Ciccone, I mean, this is a guy who did not, first-round pick, did not look anything like a first-round pick before he came to. It was
a comp pick, right?
Yeah, he was the
so it was like a sandwich round pick.
38th round. Or sorry, 33rd pick. 38th round of high school, 33rd pick. Yep. So does not play particularly well with Arizona, which is itself a strong organization. Then boom, put him on Cleveland, starts 23 games, does a nice job, helps them get to where they're at. It feels like with pitching, they just have a knack for finding certain guys and getting the most out of them. I mean, you see anything on that side that gives them a chance to be in the position that they're at?
Their systems stand out. I think they just do like throw strikes with good movement profiles, and good things will happen. Play good defense behind that, and pitchers will look better. Mm-hmm. There's a guy by the name of Carl Willis, who's their pitching coach, who I had a lot of. Carl Willis was the pitching coach in 2018 for the Boston Red Sox when they won. And he's that's not the analytically driven guy, right? Necessarily. He's very fluent in anything you need to be fluent in. And he's a really charismatic dude, but it's more, he feels more like he's got a Southern draw, like a more old school pitching coach.
Yeah.
Right. That kind of blends well with an analytically driven approach on the acquisition and development side. And so Carl Willis really stands out. Players deserve the lion's share of the credit, but the guys who put them in confident positions to go out and have success, I think that jumps out to me when you ask me, like, what do they have going? And that's something I don't think people, the pitching coach's name doesn't jump to the front of somebody's mind, but like, I believe in things like that. And I see, like, that doesn't surprise me. That's why I said Stephen Vogt probably being a good manager probably has something to do with keeping your team in it for that long, even if you started out poorly, where you're basically trading players away, right? And then you suffer a scandal. Like, how do you keep that ship going? They call the manager a skipper, right? Like, how do you keep this thing going and stay stable? And I don't know. I like when I see him do a post-game press conference, I was like, this makes sense that this guy's good at this, or that this team plays well for this guy. Now, I don't know everything happening behind the scenes, but that's the more human kind of stuff that I see in addition to good processes.
I mean, look at talk about scandal. The Dodgers last year,
yep,
they got to keep their player. So that worked out a little better. They got to keep their guy the whole year, but starting with what happened with Ohtani, and then obviously we know how that ended. So, there's something to be said for someone who could steer that ship through stormy waters, which we know not just
100%.
in those situations, but in the postseason at some point. Kind of zooming out a little bit. I know you want to talk about some players that really caught your attention this year.
Sure.
Even if everybody talks about them, there's a reason why everybody talks about these guys. So, I know you have somebody you want to talk about. I got to talk about this person that is probably the most talked about player in American sports, which is Ohtani.
Yeah.
I mean, we become numb to this, but I'm just taking a step back here. This guy had 55 home runs. He had 146 runs. 146 runs. He had 20 steals. We know he could get 50 because he did it the year before. He was just kind of preserving his body. And then on the mound, am I wrong? I watched his last few starts just because I'm such a fan of his, and I try not to take what he's doing for granted. And Screwball, what he does, the misses he gets in the zone, unreal. I mean, is it crazy to say that it's not out of the realm that we watch this postseason and say that the best pitcher in the postseason was Ohtani? Because those last few starts, the arsenal that he is throwing out there, he's throwing harder than he ever has. He's not even throwing the split, and he's still killing guys. The split's there when he needs it. I mean, just here's his last 5 games pitching: 6 innings, 0 earned runs. How many strikeouts? 8. 5, 0, 5. Had a short outing, but 0 earned runs, 3.2 innings. 5 innings, 1 run, 9 strikeouts. He is just dominant on the mound, and I don't think I've ever seen him. He's not going as long into games. It's a short period, but I don't know if I've ever seen him pitch better than he's pitching this season when he had 55 home runs.
Look at the bar graph on the pitching side. Like every category, it's elite from the pitching standpoint. And it's a 98 mile an hour average 4-seam fastball. Like, it's a full arsenal, right? 4-seam, sinker, splitter, curveball, sinker, changeup, and there's a cutter in there for sure. So there's a pitchability factor. This is the best baseball playing human being the world has ever seen. Like, I don't think I'm going out on a limb saying that. I actually think I'm saying something obvious saying that, but like, to your point, we're numb to this. Like, it's not, I want to gush about Aaron Judge being boringly good, dominant for this long, but like, it's happening parallel to Ohtani in the 2 major markets. Like, baseball is booming right now, but to give Ohtani not only his flowers, man, but like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. And high leverage.
Who are this guy's parents? Like,
you know what though? I want to say something because, and maybe we'll pull this graphic up later. I'll find it because I printed it out to show my son. Yeah. We always talk about it off air because he's, I'm watching baseball through his eyes. He's not only the biggest fan in the world, he's also a player. Yeah. And I showed him Ohtani's goal chart. Have you seen this thing?
I have not. No.
So I'll send you the picture. Ohtani did a goal chart when he was a young kid, and it was the most specific goals it was like a flow chart, most specific things you've ever seen. It had a karma column about just being a good person, treating people well. Yeah. It had like just specific goals as far as the weight room, however meals he wants, how he's going to have his balance on the pitching side. It was all to be the number one pick of the NPB draft.
Right.
That was the goal.
Right.
That obviously that was
a shorter term goal.
Very modest goal considering that what he's become. But I think we talk too much about Ohtani's talent, and he's double jointed, the size, the speed, all the twitch stuff that he has. We don't talk enough about his work ethic, which in my opinion is the best. And I don't know all these guys and their processes, but I cannot imagine that it's not the best in baseball when you consider what he does for his body, what he does to do both things at the highest level. He might play outfield here in the playoffs. Who knows how that's going to look? But like, he is just as freakish, if not more freakish to me. So we've had, Josh Hamilton was pretty talented. We've had some talented dudes. The stuff,
King Griffey Jr.
Yeah, the stuff, Caglione, what he just did, as far as throwing hard and being a big monster that can run and all the things he does. The work ethic that this guy does, coming back from this injury, this is his second Tommy John, and
a scandal,
which, depending who you believe, I personally think it was probably the product of him being so locked in on baseball that something like this could happen.
Regardless, it's happening in his sphere. So it's like, could be a potentially huge distraction, yet here we are.
He's the hardest working, at least the most effectively working human being I've ever seen in sports, considering what he's done.
Yeah, I think anybody that's in player development, the development of major league players and major league outcomes, should be dissecting this in every direction that they can. And that goal chart, I haven't seen it. I want to look at it.
Send it to you.
Because it makes me ask, like, who are this guy's parents?
Yeah.
Like, who set this in motion? If that young man is thinking that way at that stage, did he get there all by himself? Maybe. The Japanese are, looking at the Japanese way of life and the way baseball's approached and the way craft and craftsmanship is approached, I think is being put on display too. It's hitting like big physicality, big mobility, big talent, but also, like you say, work ethic. And I think that definitely needs to be a part of it, but also a way to approach life.
Yeah.
And a way to approach goals and a way to approach high level competition.
Yep.
High level physicality. And I think it's I think what you're seeing is like a maturation of the NPB as well, of Japanese baseball. Because we can talk about Yamamoto too. We can talk about Sasaki, Teriyaki Sato. Shout out Teriyaki.
Yep.
But like, Japanese baseball's here. Like, and also if you watch the World Baseball Classic, they won.
Yeah, and we got that coming up here
in big fashion. And Ohtani was right in the center of that. But the scouting director in me, it can't help but think, like, who set this process up for this young man to think and operate and then execute on his own? Don't get me wrong, but like, who made this and who set these things into motion to net out the best player we've ever seen? I don't think it's as simple as just working hard. I think it's so many things going right.
So this is freshman in high school. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like basically 9 squares. And you're talking about like stuff like pick up trash, show respect to umpires, read books, take care of equipment, thankfulness, persistence, those kind of very broad things. Then you got, create the angle of delivery, wrist strength, range of motion, practice catching liners, just different things, sharpness of slider, use fastball form for all pitches, very specific things. And then meals, 7 bowls of rice in the morning, 3 bowls in the morning. It's different weight room goals. It's like, this is so specific. There's a whole mental toughness column. Look at, what do you think about some of these things? Don't let plays affect emotions, calm mind, burning heart. I like that one. But you talk about Japanese baseball. It's a pretty good summary right there.
Calm mind, burning heart.
Don't make waves. Something like that. This is the most impactful player just from the game standpoint since Babe Ruth. I don't know. He's making a lot of waves, but this, in the small term, don't make waves. It's just amazing. This is such a unique guy, and we're lucky because you also have Judge doing things that we've not seen from a right-handed hitter in 100 years. We are seeing Kyle Raleigh doing things we've seen from a catcher ever.
Some switch hitter ever.
Right. So, this is a very unique time, but I think even amongst these all-time great things, this is just so above everything else in sports that I don't think we can talk about it enough.
Yeah.
And now that he's pitching and hitting, this postseason could be, or maybe the Reds knock him out in short order. We don't hear of anything, but
the Reds want it to happen.
It also could be, the Ohtani show.
It could be, and I'd argue that it will be. Freddie Freeman always shows up too.
Yep.
Mookie Betts is playing strong into the second half, so I don't want that to get lost. But we can sit here and gush about Ohtani the whole time, and you can make any argument. You can make a development argument. You can make a pitching argument. You can make a scouting argument. It all looks pretty too. So it's just like generational. I think he's going to inspire how many people are going to try to swing like Ohtani from here on out now, or how many, like, that's why I think it's like Japan and Japanese baseball is here to stay. And it's because, I mean, Ohtani he's the definition of generational, and generational feels like putting it lightly.
Yeah.
Feels like a legendary human being. Well, like sportsman, really.
It's like running the mile when they got under a certain threshold, and then after that, everybody did it.
Interesting.
You know, it's like you will see, I'm pretty sure, more, and we said this for a while. This is not the first one to say this, but I expect to see more guys doing both that have the levers to do it. I don't know if they're going to be the best at both and be the best base runner and all the other stuff.
They'll have him in mind as they're doing it.
It wouldn't even be possible if he didn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, they wouldn't even have had it in their brain to try it.
Right.
It's like a ceiling that's been just smashed with what he's doing.
Yeah. He feels like he's an alien placed here and, like, you know, is playing baseball, you know, like it doesn't, nobody has this business being good. There's any business being this good at these incredibly difficult things to do. And he's not doing it as a reliever. He's doing it as a starter. And that's like, it just, you know, I got to imagine it's what, like, watching Babe Ruth was like back in the day, where it's like, what is happening? Like,
another ceiling, right? Because after that, they started hitting more, right? Like, now they saw him do it, and then you had other guys do it.
Right.
But he was like outside the conception of what was possible until he was the one that did it.
But intention and execution are two completely different things, right? Like, it may be easier to think that the pathway is open to doing that, but then you look at how specific this young man was in his goals, and like how he has been able to do this at the highest level in the biggest market with the whole country watching you, and yet, like, still seem unfazed by it, and looks like he's having fun all the time. And so there's something very, I don't know if it's Zen or he's found baseball at a different level than anybody else has found it in ever, maybe. So cool shit to talk about every time he comes up.
What else from the season? It's caught your eye. It could be an individual performance. We talked about some of the teams that made the playoffs. It could be the whole sport. I mean, obviously the running game and some of the stuff that's happened there has been pretty interesting. We saw that last year with the rule changes, but, like, what has caught your eye macro level, or from a player standpoint, that you want to talk about from the regular season as we get ready for the postseason? I
think, to give a zoomed out answer, I think I like that there's more action on the bases. I think it's made the game just more exciting overall. It's made the game a little more like there's something at stake always, especially putting a runner on, which you always want to emphasize guys getting on base. And then if they get on base, they could take a base. Even guys like Juan Soto are approaching 40 stolen base seasons. And I think it's not always the fastest guy that nets out the stolen base. Like, stolen bases, you could be really fast and get bad jumps and net out as like a pretty poor base runner, or you could be an average runner with elite instincts and be a really good base stealer and run advancer. And, like, so I like the things that the pitch clock speeds up the game. It condenses it. I like those are higher level things. I think we're working toward an automatic balls and strike system that I think is soon to happen. And I think that'll add to the pacing, except for the challenges. We'll see how that works. Those are high level takeaways. But I like seeing guys put themselves on the map. So seeing something like Cal Raleigh happen, where, like, yes, he was a good player last year, but to propel himself into an elite territory, I root for those stories all the time. They really jump out. Guys like Geraldo Perdomo, like, putting himself, he's a top 5 WAR player in all of baseball. And he wasn't in that conversation before. He was in the conversation of very good player. Arizona, kudos to them. They signed him to, like, aggressively identified him as an extension candidate. And then he goes out and has the best year of his career. So that's what you'd hope to happen in an optimal scenario. And I think the Diamondbacks will be back. I think they made a nice little run toward the end there, but those guys emerging into the elite territory. I love Bobby Witt. So just him cementing himself as a top 3 player in all of baseball. That jumps out to me. We talked about it earlier with the Guardians, like Jose Ramirez just being the steadiest superstar, maybe like in terms of long-term, just what you can count on over such a long stretch of time. That's fun. Juan Soto is going to get lost in all this, but another really good year, like an elite offensive performance. Despite a 260 batting average, Kyle Schwarber, we can get into this batting average. I think Trey Turner is going to win the batting title with a 304.
Yeah,
304 average.
Lowest in a long time.
I think people need to get over it. Like, are we not having good offensive baseball being played? Yeah, we are, right? Ohtani, Judge, Raleigh, I think we're evolving into this era where batting average doesn't and shouldn't drive the way you evaluate an offensive player. I think we've evolved past that point. So we can I've seen a lot of people be salty about this. Oh, nobody hits 300 anymore, or nobody hits 320 anymore. We don't see that. Yeah, okay. But we're seeing home run totals and things back into those 90s, 2000s ranges. So like we're netting out good offense.
Lone Depot, where you were at on Saturday, what do they show on the scoreboard next to the player's name? It's the OPS.
Right.
To your point. I mean, I've been there with my dad, and he's asking what that number is, because obviously seeing 800, that's something different. But that, to me, I don't know how it is in other parks, but that seems to me a sign of the change you're talking about.
We tried to get it to that for a while, but it was like too many people. The argument against it was that hasn't caught up. Like the fan still doesn't think that way, and it's true.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way to contextualize an 850, 820 OPS good?
Right.
You say that to the average person, like I don't know what the context is. That's why I'm a bigger fan of the WRC plus stuff, like the stuff that it's like if it's a 120, it's 20% better than league average, which is 100.
Right.
I'm partial to those kinds of metrics, but I think overall batting average is it's not to say that it's not. Trey Turner is a top 6 player in baseball, but we've adjusted to a different era of baseball that you shouldn't value offensively shouldn't be attached exclusively to batting average. If you have a good batting average, chances are you're also pretty good, or at least a small chance. But that's a high level takeaway. And just the guys who put themselves on the map: Jeremy Pena, Michael Garcia, Pete Crow Armstrong, guys we weren't talking about. Nico Horner's a top 20 player in baseball.
Bryce Terang.
Junior Caminero at 21 years old, hitting 40 plus bombs. Like Bryce Terang, this is what you want. You need players to emerge. You need guys that you weren't taking into consideration to raise the overall floor of the game. And I think those guys are doing it. And from a range of teams, like great players are coming from everywhere. And I think that that's a testament to global baseball.
I want to talk about this, guys. I know you did. We talked about it before the show, but when I saw this and I saw Jason Stark say it, I've seen other people say it, and I guess it hit me because it's just the last 100 years, based on what Aaron Judge has done, talk about WRC consistently being having a 2 in front of that, being the best right-handed hitter of the past 100 years, which, given the advances in the games, probably means we're talking about the best right-handed hitter of all time. Are we there? You saw Pujols, you saw Manny Ramirez, you saw some of these guys, Miguel Cabrera, obviously all great players, but the numbers seem to indicate that the best right-handed hitter of all time is what we're seeing from Aaron Judge really the last 5 years.
With a lot more to watch. Like he's 33 years old and at the best pace of his career, like coming off of what was another MVP caliber season. So we need to not get lost in how great this is. It feels like it's getting into it really puts Barry Bonds in context. But it feels like you're getting into that territory of like an undisputed, like king of his split, which being the right side of things, or, best hitter in the American League. But it's 100 percentile walk rate as well. So he's the ultimate case of a swing decisions driving an elite outcome, right? So it's not just walk related, because he's the biggest case of why swing decisions matter. And then having elite power to net out the elite outcome, but also carries one of the worst whiff rates in all of baseball. So he's the most emblematic player of the era that we live in my opinion. Like, where's the value at? Is it, you can have some swing and miss so long as you're not chasing. He's swinging and missing, but he's in the 84th percentile in a chase rate. So he doesn't go outside of the zone. He locks in on his pitches. He still misses a lot. That whiff percent and K percent, that's not enough. You wouldn't look at those two numbers and be like, okay, that's what we want to target. But no, like to me, it really underscores and highlights the importance of making good swing decisions. I think he's the ultimate example of that. And then he puts elite level power behind that, and you net out the best offensive force in baseball. But with his whiff percentage is in the second percentile. It's one of the worst in all of baseball. Yet he's still the best offensive player in his league. So what's important here?
Well, it's funny you talk about batting average. If you look at Aaron Judge's last 3 full seasons, I know 2023, he's still had a big year, but only played 106 games. If you look at his last 3 seasons of over 150 games, 2 MVPs, there's going to be another one. So say it's 3 MVP seasons. Look at his batting average. 311, 322, 331. So even with all that the oldest stat in the book, the one that we put in the dustbin, he's dominant in that too, beyond anyone else in the game. So it's like they're really, it's all black bold letters when you look at this guy.
And he's gotten better. Right? So it's I have to be like shout out to my guy James Rowson again, right? Like if you put the Yankees in reverse order of offense, like yes, they have Aaron Judge. Obviously that drives a lot of what we're talking about here, but they have so far and away the best. Fangraphs does an offensive, hold on. I want to make sure I'm speaking from numbers here, but Fangraphs puts together their categories into offense, defense, and total WAR. If you put them in descending order of offense, the New York Yankees are at a 132.6. The second best team is 98. Third best team is 93, 88, 85, 82, and so on. But the gap between the Yankees and everybody else offensively is tremendous. And I think you asked me about Carl or the Indians and what's going on, or Guardians, I'm sorry, and what's going on well in the pitching. You asked that about the Yankees, and you were asking it through the vehicle of Aaron Judge. So Aaron Judge, make no mistake, Aaron Judge is responsible for the lion's share of Aaron Judge being this good. But I think it also helps to have like what I believe to be an elite level collaborator in the process to net out elite level swing decisions, because that you're working with Aaron Judge as a hitting coach. Like you're not having a mechanics driven conversation the whole way through. You're having an approach driven conversation. Chances are like he's just got to make a good move to the baseball, which is no easy thing, but you're working on a lot of timing and a lot of swing decision and tunneling and bullying pitchers into certain spots in the zone and capitalizing on your pitch when you get it, putting yourself in good counts and getting into good count leverage.
Unique body type that not everybody can work with.
Unique body type, right? But then you look at the other side of it, and Jazz Chisholm having a career year and Ryan McMahon going over there. Like a lot of guys are having good offensive resurgent year. Trent Grisham had a breakout offensive season. Cody Bellinger, same deal. So I'm biased and partial because he's a friend, but I think you got to give credit where credit is due too. I think those guys do a lot of things offensively very well, and I think the person steering that offensive ship is James Rowson, and he's one of my favorite people in the game, and I think I think the results are really speaking for themselves.
And we talked about at the front of the show about the big money teams being here, but we just talked about Aaron Judge.
Yeah,
it's not someone that was developed by the A's or someone else and then signed a big money deal with the Yankees, right? So you're talking about a homegrown player, and nobody thought would be what he is. He was not a top 5 pick or anything like that. And there's a college player, right? So he wasn't he really had a unique developmental path.
Sure.
And that was all with this organization. So you have to, that's not a money deal. It costs a pretty penny now. It's really about development. So before we get out of here,
James Rowson was a coach in the Yankees development system at the beginning of the arc, and then we'll come back to the organization and then work with him when he's already at a superstar level to then have like net out 2 more MVP level seasons. Now, maybe that's coincidence, but I think if you ask either of them, there's benefit to having that depth of a relationship and depth of a collaboration, which is what I think an elite offensive performance by any player warrants recognition of whoever's helping guide you through that part of it. You deserve the lion's share without question, like I said, but I think it helps to have, it's like do boxers believe in their cornermen?
Let me ask. Let me ask you this before, because I had some questions to get us out of here. But you've hit something that fascinates me, and you've been around elite level players, Mookie Betts, you name it. You've been around some of the best guys in the game.
Shout out Mookie.
And I know these guys are all different, so there's no one answer for all of these players because they all have their own personalities, they all have their own things. As a general rule, do you find that the absolute best players embrace coaching? Well, they're already good. They're already the best. Coaching at that level. Are they the same as basically average when it comes to being receptive to coaching and seeking out coaching? Do they seek out less coaching because they're better players, or do they seek out more? I know this is general. I'm trying to ask you to generalize here, but how would you say that stacks up for the guys that are already the absolute best players of the game?
I think it depends, right? I think it depends on the approach that those coaches take with them. If their coaches like present it in an approachable way, on a individualized way, I think big league players will be receptive to things that they buy into, and the elite ones will really buy in. But you have to prove why they should buy into it. It can't just be because you got 50 years in the big leagues. You could talk about Barry Bonds as one of the best hitters of all time, but when he was in a hitting coach role, he wasn't the best hitting coach of all time. Maybe he could have been, but like those two things aren't the same. So there's a delivery and there's a buy-in and there's you have to prove to a major league player why he should buy into however you think about this. And sometimes the way a coach thinks about this should take a back seat to how this player maybe thinks about this. Right. And so it depends. Like personality matters, flexibility on both sides or trust on either side matters. Sometimes those guys in those roles, like the coaches, they play more of a psychologist role than a mechanic role. It's more like not only mentality driven, but players have a whole slew of things going on outside of their lives, especially high level players with a lot of attention on them. And the guy that they get to go into their dojo with, into their go monk mode in their specific area with, that I think the right kind of players buy into high level coaching, and the best kinds of organizations make sure that they only have high level coaching because they know a version of what I'm saying to be very, very true. And you ask the best players of all time, the things that they place value. And we had Raul Ibanez in here, and, a very good player. But when you get to talk to him and you geek out with him about hitting, he talks about the guys who changed, who turned on a light bulb for him or helped him think about the game a certain way. He was a 20-year big leaguer, and I think some of the better players, not only do they buy into it, but they seek it out. So I think right now we're in this era of guys seeking out things in the off season to look to shift, change, evolve. And hopefully the right organizations have the best of those guys in-house. That's what I think the Yankees have.
So I want to ask you to predict every single series, but there's one that I got to ask you about. We've talked about it, different angles. Red Sox, Yankees. Got friends in both organizations.
Yep.
How do you see this one playing out?
My emotions, something about the instinct is telling me that the Red Sox pull this one out. Or the Yankees are going to run away with it in 2 games and just score 7-8 runs, or the Red Sox are going to win a close series. Again, I can't sit here on the show and not say Red Sox, but I just spent an hour talking about the Yankees and how good they are. So that's why I spotlight the series as a whole.
And that crochet star, we must see TV from just a tone setting standpoint. Can't wait to see that.
Can we cap it off with Paul Taboni?
Oh yeah, please.
I really want to give
let's talk about
that man his flowers. Paul Taboni was just named the president of baseball operations for the Washington Nationals at 35 years old. Paul was an intern the year after I was in the class after that, and has just done nothing but shoot up to a president of baseball operations role for a big market major league club. And I just, as the Red Sox go into this postseason, and I'm sure he's in that weird place, right? He's going to have his mind on this future thing, but also watch all the things you were just a part of. And I wonder how that transition or split happens. But I think he's a really good guy in the game. I think he's one of the better executives. I think he will be very impactful in that role. But shout out to guys like doing that, getting those kinds of high level jobs at those ages. And I think, yeah, it's a dream outcome if you're somebody chasing that path. So good for him.
What makes him unique? Because I've seen a lot of articles on him in the last couple days because his age just is different, right? A lot of people just pointing out different things about him that have allowed him to move fast, even in a sport that rewards kind of those young guys. I mean, this is particularly young. What makes him different?
There's some guys that you come across and they're just like, they just kind of got it. I don't know. You see this with a lot of players. He's always struck me like there's a magnetism there, and then he's just exceptionally sharp. Always like the way people, like, I think people just have like and lean into having conversations. And I think he's positioned, works his ass off, has positioned himself at every point to really be an important member of that operation. If not, you don't get the promotion so aggressively every time. And so good dude, stands out. And he does it with like, as a family man. He's got 4 kids and like, has done this, just gotten here really fast, but it's not, to me, it's not by accident, but it's also, I think he's a modern baseball executive too. That's going to be very well steeped in processes and analytically driven decision-making. And the Red Sox have gone through a big efficiency kick, right? Where they famously hired a consulting firm to come in and improve all their processes. They call things like you used to call scouting. They talk about it like acquisitions instead of scouting. So I think he's also operating at the kind of tip of the spear to a certain extent, being steeped in that Red Sox operation. We've talked about it before. They're humming on a lot of their processes. I think the fact that they have a lot of those processes going well, especially the amateur scouting department, which I believe he was heading up, as well as player development. They're 2 models of how to do things right now. So I think that definitely helps get you in the conversation. But once you get into that interview room, it's you that has to convince ownership to believe you're the right person to steer the ship of a very like a storied, big franchise with big dollars. So it's a big job, but I think he's going to do really well in that job. So
and total 180 from what they had before, right? Just from the age to the experience, right? It's like you go
stylistically, seemingly very different.
I like the job. I mean, obviously, you take any job.
Great city, great stadium, money behind it.
You got young players. Yeah. We talked about that San Diego trade. I mean, those guys are still there.
Yeah.
Eli Willits, we did the live stream on the draft. I just pulled up his numbers. He only played 15 games, Carolina League, but hit 300. So he's only 17 years old. He's not going to be,
careful with average.
The
only mark. No, it's good.
OPS 757. But this is a guy with a profile. Hit tool.
He showed up and looked like he belonged where he was.
And then this is something that was part of the profile, right? The bat to ball. So you're seeing that part of it too. Obviously, I'm just looking at the stat line, but watching his high school
what you want your first overall pick to go out and do. Go out and perform. Small sample, no doubt.
100%. So it'd be very interesting to see how this plays out. But as an NL East guy, I'm not loving hearing how good this guy is in our division. But
it's tough for a while. It's
an interesting division. I mean, Braves, they'll be back. Phillies, I think this is their window right now. They'll be fine, but this is their window. They're certainly not going to be doing this. These guys aren't going to be doing this forever.
This is the roughest division to operate in. The AL East and the NL East, I think, are on the NL West, but the NL West is a little bit top heavy. Yeah. But it's a good time for baseball, man. It's a great time for baseball.
And I got to vouch for my Marlins. I mean, I believe they're the youngest team in the major leagues. If not, they got to be pretty close. Certainly as far as like service time. I mean, how many rookies did they have on the team this year playing major roles? So that's a team that I don't know if there's a fluke. I know the run differentials and their record. I
don't think so. I think they're well positioned. I don't think it's a fluke. And I think before you're very good, you got to be good. Right. So I think it's a progression into this. And we've talked about this before. I believe less in the overnight, like all of a sudden very good, flash in the pan, and then it's not a sustainable thing. I think a progression into being a good club makes the most sense to me. And I think the Marlins took a very significant step forward in their progression toward being a long-term, Tampa Bay Rays style baseball club that you get to win, you progressively win more and more games. And I think we can overcomplicate this sometimes too. The Marlins play good, clean baseball and pitch well. You can be in the hunt. Hit like the Yankees and you're at the top of it.
Right.
But you can be in the hunt by playing good, clean baseball. And they did that toward the end. And that was a tough series for the Mets. They beat the Mets. That was a convincing.
They beat them.
They beat them. So I think future's bright. I think Peter Bendix and Gabe Kapler and the rest of that group, I think they're doing a really nice job, and they're doing some really good things in player development too. They just won the AAA crown for the first time in the organization's history. Got a slew of Dominican arms that are going to be impacting them.
Someone we know helped that process.
Robbie Snelling, Thomas White, like they got
elite left-handed prospects. I mean, by the end of it, you got to say those are two of the top.
They're in a good spot. They're in a good spot, and I think they're doing a lot of things to put themselves there, as well as capitalizing on having a lot of good things and that's what I feel. That's how I like gratification. Like sometimes you think like, oh, you guys didn't win, or you didn't win games, therefore everything you did is not good. And that's not always true, right? Like it could be a lot of positive things happening. Joe Mack,
oh yeah,
good things happening while you have poor major league results. And then all of a sudden, like just a new shift and change, repositioning or reshuffling puts those pieces in a even better position to move forward. So yeah, I think it's a good time. I think they needed this, so I'm glad they're getting it.
The market share of Dominican right-handers, and the person I'm sitting at the table with has a lot to do with it, but it's like I feel like 90% of the dominant Dominican right-handed prospects, or at least dominant stuff Dominican right-handers, are in this organization. You talk about Yuri, Sandy, Cabrera, everybody in the DSL. They got a lot of those dudes. No small part thanks to you. I know you won't take credit for it. I know there's a lot of people involved in that process.
International operations as a whole deserves that.
But yeah, and I'm biased, obviously. Stowers being out, it would hard for them to score runs. But if this team was in the playoffs, I don't think they'd be an easy out with the three guys we saw in the Mets series.
No, they'd be a problem for somebody.
So
it'd be a problem for somebody.
Had to squeeze in some Marlins talk. All right, so last prediction. You said the Phillies. You had which I can't blame you on that one. Phillies winning it all. Who do you see coming out of the American League?
Boston.
So you got Phillies over Boston. I'm going with Dodgers over the Seattle Mariners. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Cannot wait. We'll be covering it all every Monday on El Big League Show. You're about to say something. I see you.
No, I don't want to root against Nick Martinez ever. So I want to like spotlight the Reds. But I think they're going to run out of firepower. I think it's Red Sox, Dodgers in the end. And I think the Dodgers just, they got that mojo.
Oh, you said Phillies or Dodgers? I thought you had the Phillies winning it all.
No, I like the Phillies, but I still think the Dodgers. I think it comes down to Philly versus the Dodgers, and I think the Dodgers, they do what they do, they get there, and then I think it's their position to repeat, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody offline, and I think this team with the pitching with the way it is at this time of the season, I don't say significantly better than a team that won the World Series, but the pitching feels much different now than it did last year, and they won it all.
Better.
I mean, look at the names and look at the form.
I agree.
I mean, you got Ohtani back.
Right.
Blake.
They were worried about their pitching going into last postseason. I think they're feeling more confident about their pitching going into this postseason.
Aside from, the Mariners. I picked the two best staffs. I thought deepest staffs, but I'm not sure there's more talented staff right now than the Dodgers.
They're hard to bet against right now.
So it'll be fun to watch. We'll be covering it all on El Big League Show. So we will see you Monday with
I want to do I think it might have to be hopefully it's a Red Sox Yankees one, but I think we're going to do a live watch along at some point, or Danny and I are going to sit and watch a postseason baseball game. So I think it's going to be an impromptu episode, and we'll put out some previews of it, but just to put that on everybody's radar.
They don't have to get to sit on the couch. The former MLB executive, they look at the game different. I can tell you because I've lived that experience, not on camera, sitting next to this guy and learning about the game. So it is a must-see event, and we will let you guys know. But thank you for tuning in. Remember to like and subscribe to the show, and we'll see you then.
Bye, Malia. I just told my daughter watching the show. After Sheesh.